Last year, the provincial government unanimously passed an act officially recognizing the month of October as Islamic Heritage Month. Neethan Shan, Toronto City Councillor for Ward 42, partnered with various Muslim organizations to help promote events commemorating Islamic Heritage Month. Let's sit down and talk to Councillor Neethan Shan about the importance of recognizing and celebrating Islamic Heritage Month. Neethan, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I know your office is doing a lot of work with regards to Islamic Heritage Month. So tell me a little bit about what this month means to you.
Well, Islamic Heritage Month is special for people of Islamic faith, but also for the rest of Canada. You know, we have over 1 million people across the country, mostly in Ontario and Quebec, doing phenomenal work. You know, you talk about economic growth of the country being contributed by them. We have, social, cultural, political advancement through people of Islamic faith. So it's a time to celebrate their contributions. It's also because there's been a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding created by certain politicians and certain media, and so this is a time when people can come together and learn more about the teachings of Islam, more about the contributions of Islam, not just in Canada, because just talking about Canada limits the contribution. If you look at the worldwide contribution of Islamic faith and people practicing Islam, in not just in philosophy and spirituality, but also in science and math, and it's fabulous. So it's a time for us to honor that contribution, but also to kind of remove the stereotypes and racial profiling by acting proactively.
And I know your office, you made a public effort to support Islamic Heritage Month. So you had an opening reception, you're doing monthly events. Tell me a little bit about sort of what was the driving force, because you can technically support this event and this month without making it very public, but you chose to do that.
Well, one of the reasons is I'm the founder of Tamil Heritage Month, and I founded it a few years back, and it's become big, and
That's
it's actually
amazing.
one of the things I noticed, because Islamic History Month was passed many years ago federally, and last year provincially, but there was not a lot of take from different institutions to do this, because it passed and it was sitting there. And so what I'm doing is acting as a catalyst to bring community organizations together and say, you got to do something about this month, and you got to celebrate, you got to honor, you got to showcase, you got to create awareness. And once I do this first year, I don't think I should be doing every year. It's not my role. I think the community has the leadership and the institution have the leadership to do it. It's just forming that alliances and starting it off. So I'm glad that number of organizations kind of come together. I had an iftar a few months ago at City Hall, and the kind of phenomenal impact that event had for people to feel like within City Hall they can come and have a prayer, have a fast breaking iftar happening within the corridors of power, where often we don't talk about the needs and the concerns and the success of the community. So I'm just building on that to kind of create that initial push within the systems to do something and to celebrate. So that's what drove me to do this month like that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. What about, tell me a little bit, I know you're partnering with some Muslim organizations to undertake some events during Islamic Heritage Month. So tell me, one important one that's coming up for you.
Well, the final event is going to be critical for us, because I think we had a launch, and the launch was very good. Many partners came and spoke about the events they're doing. They were also happy to be under the same roof, to be sharing some of these things that are happening and so on, and building that network. But the finish would be also good, because we will be celebrating the kind of the hard work that went in to do this month. We've had amazing work by TDSP this year. They had it last year too, but they stepped it up manyfold. City of Toronto now through this is taking an active role. We are going to be showcasing what can be done as a model. So TDSP's model could be used for other school boards. My model could be used for other councillors, other municipalities, to kind of start exploring this, and not to be feared, not to be kind of stepping back in a role. When something is not happening or something is not happening enough, we can always step in to help to facilitate that role, and then step back when we need to. And so that event, and we also have Somali History Month this year as well, and as predominantly Muslim and also Black community, they have unique challenges, but their success is often also overlooked. So at the end of the month, when we do the closing ceremony, we'll also have a showcase on the Somali history heritage.
That's amazing. I think beyond this model that you've phenomenally implemented, you're also, I was noticing on your Facebook page, you're profiling different Muslim organizations and leaders every single day of Islamic Heritage Month. So what are you hoping to achieve through this?
Well, I think it's it's for the rest of the population. Social media is great.
Yeah.
I mean, it has its limitations, but
Yeah.
I have a good following of diverse communities in my social media. I've built it over time. So putting it every day, and I'm hoping that it'll get spread out. Each time a post goes out, it gets shared multiple times, and so people get to know the local community impact of the Muslim community. It's not just about who was the first MP or who was the first minister, but also the kind of labor activism that goes in, gender equity activism that goes in, the sports activities that go in, the fabulous organizations that are run as a volunteer organizations with some staff, like Muslim Welfare Center in my ward is a phenomenal example of helping people. Project Ramadan helps thousands of people. They have fill the backpack that goes to many young kids when they go back to school. This is a success of the community that needs to be shared. And I talked about Ramadan to many people. And sometimes, what happens is that without documenting, there's so much charity and international development, local development that happens without registering, without counting hours, without counting impact. That sometimes makes others in the mainstream, quote unquote, feel like these communities aren't contributing. But if you were to sit down and do the research and find the impact, you will know that that the impact is huge. And so that's the idea of people to get to know their neighbors, their co-organizations, become familiar to celebrate. And social media is cost effective. You don't have to spend much time other than the research time itself. So it's been good.
So I think you are investing a lot, despite funding or whatever the case may be. You are investing a lot in this. So what would you say, as someone who is non-Muslim, what would you say to someone who comes to you and says, well, why are you doing so much for the Muslim community?
Well, it comes from both sides. Sometimes, a reporter, I won't name the reporter, asked me after I did the iftar, why did you have a prayer inside City Hall, which is a secular space? Why was there a call to prayer? Why did the prayer happen inside a secular space? I said, we are a secular country. That means all religions are respected and given opportunity equally, and all religions are able to practice their religion without being hated or without being intimidated. And I say in our country, we have a serious problem of Islamophobia. And as a secular state, we have the responsibility to intervene and give the space for a faith that's being targeted to be heard, to be showcased, to be able to come and pray and not to be intimidated. So I think what I was doing there is part of secularism, to say, if every religion is equal, then if one religion gets targeted, regardless of who it is, we have to step in to provide that space. And that's why I think, from a Tamil who's been targeted, as a Tamil who fled a genocide myself, I can connect to, racism and intimidation and discrimination a little bit more. And so I'm connected on that. And I've my area has a large number of people practicing Islam. I've had many interactions with fabulous organizers who do amazing work. And it's for us to work together. People of color often get put into divide and conquer techniques, not like the old colonial type, but the new styles are different forms. It manifests differently, but sometimes we are oblivious to it. We don't see it. And I see it all the time. As the only person of color, was the only person of color in York Region District School Board. I faced it as a city councillor who's the only South Asian. I'm facing it right now.
So tell me a little bit about those challenges, because you've been in the public eye for a very long time, now as a city councillor, but you were also a trustee. So what were some of those experiences as a South Asian, as a person of color, and as a minority?
Well, one thing is we are underrepresented, so I have to take to myself to do more. So I've done a lot more, trying to get diverse communities in it. Then you get boxed as the person who comes with the race agenda or the diversity agenda, right? So and then when they ask me about issues around environmental stuff, when I speak, they think that I'm only speaking about the concerns of brown people, not necessarily. So you get this boxing of the thing, right? So I have an education background. I can talk on a lot other issues, but sometimes because there's a gap, I take on their anti-racism agenda, then I get boxed into it. But I'm it's something I've said to myself, because of lack of representation, it's something that I'm willing to do and be able to face that.
How do you get out of that, though? If you're constantly being boxed, which is obviously not understandable, but I can understand from a from a political perspective, everyone comes in with an agenda. So you're boxed as the, the brown guy, quote unquote. So how do you challenge that for, other people of minorities, religious groups?
It will take time. I think obviously people of color who are in positions of power also have a burden of representation from our own communities who want everything done. And so so it's something we sign up to, because as a only person of South Asian origin, I'm celebrated. With that comes a responsibility to do so. So if I'm willing to accept the celebration and be quoted for my success, I also take that responsibility seriously. So I think unless people's framing changed, if when I was a trustee, it was very, very hard for me, because I got elected in a very diverse area in Markham. But the rest of the trustees, there were 11 others. When they talk to me about what does your community think about an issue, they're just asking me what do brown people think about this issue, right? Which was hard for me as a young person. When I became trustee, I was much younger. But I've learned to accept that those frame of thinking from people who are elected will take time. And also the other way to change that is elect more people from diverse backgrounds.
And I think you're also demonstrating, even with the Islamic Heritage Month, the emphasis that you've placed on partnering with other organizations and other faith groups. So tell me a little bit about how you think that also fosters and helps change the narrative a bit.
I think that's very important. I think partnerships are critical, and faiths faiths have certain common themes that we can all relate to, and so I think it's important for us to find those partnerships, and whether it be dealing with poverty, whether it be dealing with under recognition of our people's credentials when they come from a country of origin with their credentials not being recognized. There's so much commonality between our struggles, so I think we have to find those common grounds and share those stories together. It is taking time, because there's power hierarchy even within a particular religion. I don't need to say how heterogeneous people of Islamic faith is, right? Within where they come from, regions and so on. So it's not to homogenize things, but it's to have those conversations. The other thing I also want to emphasize is that during some of these months, we tend to talk about negatives within our communities. I think we should avoid that. I mean, we can frame it from a resilience point of view. Despite some of the struggles, we have successes, the thing, but it's not for, I've had principals come to me during South Asian Heritage Month and say, can we do a parenting workshop for South Asian parents as to how to get involved in schools, right? For South Asian Heritage. I said, you can do that any other month. This month is about talking about how active parents are and showcase some of the active parents, talk about what are some of the resilience that those communities have brought, the kind of engagement that they see in the community.
So maximize on the
opportunities and the success and the resilience of the community, rather than we have to talk about issues within our communities, and that happens but this is the time to push our positive, not just positive in the sense of high level elite success, but also positives in terms of people breaking barriers, people coming out strong from resilient situations.
Just as we wrap up, what advice do you have for young people or older people who want to take a grassroots approach to addressing some of the racism or challenges on the bureaucratic systems, wherever they may be, from a political leadership perspective or just within any organization?
I think we have to go back to grassroots organizing, period. I think social media has spoiled us. By clicking and sharing, we think we've done our part.
That's true.
And we have to go back probably 40, 50 years back and see how organizing really took place and combine that with technology. We don't see as many people coming out. We have this whether you have this hate rallies that are happening, and then we have counter rallies for it. Right? We should be the one protesting, because racism is real and around us. It's not those 50 people who are coming to do those hate rallies. The problem is that there are racist people in schools, there are racist people in police forces, there are racist people in elected officials. We have a role to kind of take that as our step, rather than to be countering something that is happening, because it is a real challenge. So I think we have to be the one driving the protest as people who are concerned about racism, and that has to be grassroots. We can't do that from social media or just by having diplomatic conversations.
How do you address the criticism? Because I've heard this. Going to rallies is great, but it's not really going to do anything. How does it make a difference?
But I think the going to rallies again is like how big and how organized the rallies are, right? And how widespread the rallies are, and how continuous those rallies are. And those are important. How consistent we build our movement is, right?
To continue to promote those issues.
And how does that kind of work together with the diplomatic tables and the online media, like synchronize all of those efforts together? And I want to finish off, I know we are at the last thing, Rohingya Muslim situation right now is one of those things where we see some rallies happening, some social media stuff happening, the politicians are still silent or they're taking their time. And every minute that's taken is impacting lives there, and the perpetrators of genocide use time to their advantage. So I think this is a situation where we have to be able to say, let's put as much pressure as possible on the street and to create that attention that's necessary. Because,
and on a continuous basis.
Continuous basis, not just one-off.
This was such an enlightening conversation for me. Thank you so much, Neethan, for all the work that you're doing and for coming on our show.
Thanks for having me, Asha.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.